The journey toward greater inclusion begins with an awareness of the power of unconscious cultural assumptions and the role of white privilege. For some, learning about white privilege is like teaching fish they swim in water. Privilege, like water to a fish, so permeates our surroundings we may not see. Those with less privilege see easily. Unconscious assumptions about power. Who has it, who does not. Patterns of who speaks and who does not. Unconscious attitudes about leadership and communication styles grant greater power and authority to some and silence and powerlessness in others. When men are treated more favorably than women, Caucasians given more respect than people of color, the affluent invited to speak more than poor people, persons with disabilities given diminished roles, and openly LGBTQ people relegated to the sidelines, unconscious attitudes are often at work. Mindfulness about these assumptions is the beginning of the journey toward equity and inclusion. My journey toward cultural mindfulness, always a work in progress, has come in fits and starts. As it turns out, I am privileged in nearly every category. I am white, American, straight, a highly educated professional. I am tall with a deep, resonant voice. I'm married. My upbringing was privileged relative to most of the world. In graduate school, I studied with the best from all over. I own my own house and 2 cars and have never gone without food. I've been unemployed for no more than 2 weeks in my entire life. By every measure, I am privileged. Being mindful of these privileges is a start. Being mindful of the ignorance privilege can bestow launches the journey toward greater inclusion and respect. Privilege tends to create cultural blindness. Many whites are defensive at charges of racism, sexism, or homophobia. For example, I hear white colleagues insist angrily that America's election of Barack Obama as president proves the United States is now colorblind and that racism is no more. I've heard whites declare there are no jobs for white males anymore because brown-skinned immigrants have snatched them. I've also heard that women are completely equal to men in the workplace. However, none of these statements is true. My unofficial survey of meetings shows that white males do most of the speaking, both in the percentage of people and length of time. Also, ideas put forth by women and people of color are later frequently attributed to the white men present. In self-confession, I am guilty of this more often than I realize. The antidote is for white men and people of privilege to self-monitor and to be held accountable. Old habits die hard, hands loosen their grip on power only when someone else helps pry them loose. For my white male friends, the key is not to feel guilty, but to become an ally, to take every opportunity to help others less privileged claim their power and make sure their voices are heard. Replacing white fear and male fear with humility, awareness, and becoming an ally is the long journey home to the promise of America, equality and justice for all. Remember, cultural mindfulness for people of privilege is like helping a fish understand that it is swimming in water. When unrecognized, cultural assumptions lead to exclusive behaviors. The more privileged dominate, while the less privileged stay quiet, withdraw, or rebel. Unhealthy dynamics born of unconscious cultural assumptions breed inequality and exclusion. When we become culturally mindful, we take a positive first step toward equity and inclusion. For dozens of ideas and tools to build inclusive meetings and organizations, visit Amazon and buy a copy of my book, Thrive, The Facilitator's Guide to Radically Inclusive Meetings. Or visit my website at www.civicreinventions.com.